Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días, aquí tienen el horario para hoy, jueves, el 14 de abril. No había tarea para hoy. No homework was due for today. Our learning targets for today are for you guys to be able to talk about what you were like when you were younger and what toys you used to like to play with, and to do all this utilizing the key vocabulary and then the grammar, which we're going to get into today, the imperfect tense. It's for you guys to be able to express habitual events and actions in the past, and we're going to take a look at the grammar of how to do that today. Your final question for the rough draft of your project, we're dedicating our warm-ups to that, is de niño, de niña, ¿cómo era tu familia? So there are 4 things I actually want you to do for this question. 3 adjectives to describe your family. 3 activities that you and your family used to like to do together when you were little. And then pick 2 family members and use 3 adjectives to describe each. So, 3 adjectives for your family. For example, de niño, mi familia era muy unida, chistosa y activa. And because familia is a feminine noun, your adjectives will want to be feminine as well. The second part, 3 activities that my family and I used to like to do together. And they can be things that you still like to do together, but again, from the perspective of your childhood. Mi familia y yo nos gustaba ir a la playa, salir a comer y jugar juegos de mesa. Mi madre era cariñosa, exigente y cómica, y mi padre era exitoso, ocupado, inteligente. So for these last 2 sentences, you're picking 2 different family members and then using 3 adjectives to describe each. And make sure the adjectives agree in gender. So running that back, 3 adjectives to describe your family, 3 activities to describe what you guys used to like to do when you were little, and then 3 adjectives to describe 2 family members. Let's take a look at that project. So this is the project that is due on the 9th for those of you that are A days, the 10th for those of you that are on B days. The project is called De Niño or De Niña ¿Cómo eras? It's a autobiographical presentation where you guys are presenting what you were like as a kid in Spanish. You can do this project on a PowerPoint, a poster, a Prezi, a Google slide. Although if you're going to do a Google slide, make sure that in the permissions that anybody can view it. Some of you, I'm not able to view your submissions because you have it where it's invitation only. So keep that in mind. You can do it as a video, however you want to go about it. It's up to you. But it's an opportunity for you to share cherished aspects of your childhood in the target language. For each of the 5 parts, 5 primary questions, you guys are going to include at least 2 to 3 pictures or drawings or images. It doesn't have a minimum amount of slides. It can be as many slides as needed for you guys to provide all the criteria that's asked for. So there are 5 questions that you're answering for this project. The first one, ¿Cómo eras tú? And you can go into the warm-ups from the past 3 classes, take a look at not only the agenda, but the video instructions, and you'll see some examples that you can go off of. But again, you have all 5 of these answered already in your warm-ups. ¿Cómo eras tú? What were you like as a kid? Use 5 adjectives to describe your personality and or appearance from when you were little. So you're going to begin with yo era inteligente, atlético, simpático, sociable y generoso. 5 adjectives that agree with the gender that you identify with. And you can see what you would need to do to get A, B, C, D, or no credit. Number 2, ¿qué te gustaba hacer en tus ratos libres? What did you used to like to do in your free time? list 5 things that you used to like to do in your free time, 5 verbs, and either in the imperfect or in the infinitive if you're going to start off by saying me gustaba leer, escribir, dibujar, cantar y bailar. Or you could conjugate the verbs in the infinitive. En mis ratos libres, yo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And we'll talk about the imperfect and how to conjugate verbs in the imperfect today. Third question, ¿qué era tu materia favorita y por qué? Mi materia favorita era la historia, el inglés, la educación física, las matemáticas, el arte. ¿Por qué? And then in the reasoning, you want to provide 1 adjective and 1 verb. Some of you did 2 adjectives. I'm looking for 1 of each. So, mi materia favorita, inglés, porque me gustaba leer y era interesante. So, favorite subject and 1 verb and 1 adjective to describe it. ¿Participabas en un club de deporte? The 4th question. Share any clubs or sports, extracurricular activities that you partook in as a youth. Yo participaba en baseball, coro, banda, drama, niños exploradores, etc. You could also conjugate the verbs in the imperfect rather than using the verb participar in your response. Yo nadaba. Yo jugaba baseball. Yo practicaba el piano. So you can conjugate the verb, whatever the activity is, in the imperfect as well. The last question is the longest, and I went over that earlier in this video for how to respond to the 5th and final question. So that gives you a bit of an introduction for this project. It's worth 25 points. It is your last project of the year. Y'all go all out, have fun with it. I encourage posters just because I love this project. I love the baby pictures, and I love to get to see you guys when you were little, especially me being a father of a young one myself. So I would love posters to be able to decorate the room and to provide examples of your student work. But in any case, I'll take it however you want to give it to me, and I look forward to your submissions of that assignment. All right, so for the rest of today, we're going to do a quick introduction to the imperfect on page 194, and then we're going to do some guided practice. Probably only get to exercise 14, and then again, you don't have any homework at all due for next class. So let's take a look at the Spanish imperfect. And these are the notes that we're going to go over today. So if you're absent and you're watching this video, or if you're watching this video in preparation for the project, this will be a good review for you. The imperfect tense is another form of the past. We talked about the preterites already to talk about completed actions in the past. The imperfect is used to talk about repeated actions in the past. So not things that happened only once, like the first day of school happens only once over the course of a year. Your 5th birthday happens only once. But maybe how you get used to go to school when you were little, what you used to do on the weekends when you were little, what used to be your favorite meal when you were little. Those are repeated actions in the past, or repeated descriptions in the past. We use the imperfect for that. So these are the endings of the imperfect. Regular endings, and the good news is that there are very few irregular verbs in the imperfect, and we'll go over those next week. Endings for regular AR verbs are aba, abas, aba, abamos, and aban. So it's the same process that we've looked at for how to conjugate any verb in any tense. You start with the infinitive, for example, jugar. You drop what's called the ending, the AR in the infinitive, and then you're left with the stem. And verbs in the imperfect actually don't change their stem. We saw that also with the preterite. So all you got to do is just take off the AR ending in this case and add the endings that we just identified for the imperfect. Notice that the yo form and the el ella form are the same. And for that reason, it's a best practice in Spanish to often include the subject pronoun being yo, or él, ella, usted, to include the subject pronoun before these forms, because otherwise it's kind of hard to tell if you're talking about yourself in the yo form or talking about someone in the third person. Notice there's an accent mark there, only form to have an accent in the nosotros form on the first A. And then some context clues for when we use the imperfect. We'll talk about that actually as soon as we go over the ER, IR endings. Okay, ER, IR endings now. The good news is that they share the same endings, both ER and IR verbs. And here they are. Ia, ias, ia, íamos, and ian. All endings carry an accent above the I. And just like AR endings, both the yo form and the el, ella, usted form share the same ending. So those are your regular AR, ER, and IR conjugations of the imperfect. And in terms of context clues, what we were talking about a moment ago, these are expressions that generally call for the imperfect. Generalmente, por lo general, a menudo, muchas veces, de vez en cuando, y todos los días. We actually looked at these. These are called adverbs of frequency. I believe we looked at them when we were reviewing the present tense in quarter 1, right before we were going over the daily routine vocabulary. And you guys, some of you used these adverbs of frequency when you were talking about your daily routine, what you generally do in the morning, or what you often do, a menudo, or muchas veces, many times, or very often. Todos los días, every day. Nunca, meaning never. You use these adverbs of frequency to talk about how often you did certain things in your daily routine. I just want to so those are context clues for the imperfect. To use the imperfect as it relates to repeated actions in the past. What you generally used to do, or what you would never used to do. Context clues for the preterite you can find on page 111. We used these exercises, these expressions in quarter 3 when we were talking about the last time we did these activities, to buy a gift or to make food, watch a movie, etc. Esta mañana means this morning. Anoche and ayer mean last night and yesterday. La semana pasada, el mes pasado, el año pasado are last week, last month, and last year. And then this expression, hace plus an amount of time, is how long ago something took place. So hace 2 semanas would be 2 weeks ago. Hace un mes would be a month ago. These are great clues for the preterite. Again, because the preterite is used to talk about completed, not repeated, but rather a completed action that happens only once. For example, last week, one and done. This morning, one and done. So more specific references to the past, whereas the imperfect is more general, right? Over a longer period of time. We're going to do exercise 14 for practice. Do the first 3 together. This is on page 195 to practice the conjugations of the imperfect. Margarita recuerda como de niña pasaba tiempo en la casa de sus abuelos. So you guys are going to write the correct form of the imperfect of either of the 2 verbs provided to recount Margarita's childhood. Cuando era niña, mis hermanos y yo blank tiempo en la casa de nuestros abuelos de vez en cuando. So first thing you need to do is figure out which verb should be used. Tiempo means time. And so we would say pasar tiempo, to pass time or spend time. In the nosotros form, since this is our subject, pasar would be pasábamos, right? Take off the AR and then add ábamos and you get pasábamos. And the reason why we know this is in the nosotros form is because we have another subject plus yo. Anything plus yo is always going to be nosotros because you're included. So number one, cuando era niña, mis hermanos y yo pasábamos tiempo en la casa de nuestros abuelos de vez en cuando. Mi abuela, and then galletas are cookies. So we're going to do preparar, to prepare or make cookies. Mi abuela preparaba, right? Talking about her in the ella form. Take off the AR in preparar, not both, but just the last two letters. And add aba, because we're talking about her. Preparaba. Galletas muy ricas y nosotros. Las refers to las galletas. And so we're going to use the verb comer, to eat them in the backyard, in the back patio. Nosotros is our subject, so the verb comer in the imperfect would be comíamos. C-O-M-I-A-M-O-S. Comíamos. So hopefully you get the idea of how to go about this exercise. This is what we'll do together in class today, and that's where we'll conclude for today's lesson. No homework due for the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, y'all. Ciao.